Welcome to the Pantheon Plus Rewind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 63 of The Rewind, the show dedicated to the upcoming MMORPG, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, and its community. Every week, we scour the internet for news and discussions surrounding the game and bring it straight to you, our wonderful Pantheon Plus community. We also like to highlight fan projects, answer questions posed to us on our Discord, and have our own little debates now and then. Whether you're a long-time listener or new to the show, we are so glad to have you here and hope you enjoy this week's Rewind. All right, Theric, how'd I do?
Dude, you're an old pro. You'd think you'd been doing this for a year already. That was an excellent intro. Very, very clear, very concise. I love it. So, these intros are kind of fun because the way that we do it is we always sort of like share a little personal story about ourselves, and the trade-off for whoever does the actual intro like you just did is that you're off the hook this week because you don't have to sort of come up with a funny little life anecdote to share with the audience, because I think that's important. So what that means, of course, is that it's
your
my
turn.
week to, yes, I'm on the hook. And so I had a funny thing, and we were just talking about this before we started recording, but so last week as we were recording, my computer was in its death throes. Basically, something was going wrong. It was been crashing sort of intermittently throughout the week, and I was like terrified that it was going to crash while we were recording. And so I was just crossing my fingers and everything to keep it going just long enough to get it recorded and get the show put together and everything. And I did, fortunately. Well, everything was good, as you know from last week. But as soon as that was done, of course, it died, right? Just completely died. I thought it was the RAM at first. It took me a while to actually diagnose the problem, but it turned out the video card failed. And I took it in, I took the video card, didn't get replaced. It was still under like extended warranty, which was like a genius move at the time, 2 years ago when I bought it. Super fortunate. And I dropped it off on Sunday, and then I called on Thursday and I was like, are you guys, what's the deal? Like, is it done? And they're like, yeah, we've got a replacement for you. I'm like, oh, thank God. So picked it up, got it installed yesterday, and here we are. And my computer's back to life, and I couldn't be happier. But, one of those things that just sometimes that's just the way it goes. But we didn't miss a week. We didn't miss an episode. So I'm happy. So
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, I didn't score an awesome video card or anything like that, but no, I'm doing pretty good. I'm really happy. I'm getting set up in my room, so hopefully viewers can notice a little bit better quality this time on my end. But other than that, I'm having a good time enjoying this Pantheon Plus stuff.
Right on, man. Yeah, you sound great. The audio sounds really good. So I'm encouraged. That's good.
Awesome. Well, next up, let's make sure to thank our adventuring party this week, all of whom donated during the premiere of last week's episode. So we've got Annoying Llama on the Human Monk, Jedika on the Archai Wizard, Brian Reck on the Gnome Summoner, Crow Singer on the Elf Druid, Walking Waste on the Dwarf Cleric, Jason on the Scar Beard Lord, Ziplocs on the Darkmere Rogue, Sparrow on the Dwarf Ranger, and Bounty Code on the Human Wizard. And this is always really exciting for me. But congratulations to last week's winner of the Legata Pledge. I'm always going to mess that up every time. And
you and me both. Mine has messed it up. I even get that word wrong. It's just one of those words. It's a pain in the butt.
It's fun, and I think they did it on purpose. But congratulations, Xanafel, to the Legat Pledge. We had a great turnout for that giveaway. And so stay tuned for the next one we do. We're going to keep doing them as much as we can, because these are just too fun, and we love getting these new people into the community with a pledge. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's always a good time. And this show, we've said it before, it's everything that comes in, we give back to the community. We want to give away pledges. We want to bring people into the community. We're doing fun stuff, and that's the whole concept here. So we really can't thank you enough for that. So Yeah, that's our intro.
Yeah. So is it time for VR news and notes?
I think it's time for VR news and notes. This week in Visionary Realms news and notes. Okay, so for VR news and notes this week, I want to do a quick little thing about. So this week, sometimes the best things in life are the things you don't expect. And I remember when I drove into work this week and I checked my phone, I checked Twitter, and I saw a video from Visionary Realms. I'm like, what? They released a new video? Like, you get so in the routine of things here that you expect the dev streams the first of the month, and then you get the VIP roundtable at some point and all that stuff. But we had a new VR thing, and it was the showcase of the monk abilities. And this was just a 2-minute video demonstrating the abilities in action with the pop-up of their tooltip, sort of like a tooltip style. It was amazing, right, Des?
It was great. So good. It was so well done. I loved it.
Yeah, the remix, the music, like it was the Fading Memory, I think is the name of the tune there. But it was like remixed with like the pipes sort of emphasized to be more monkish, like sort of Eastern feel. Very, very cool. And there were a couple interesting notes in the unofficial Discord that are related to this, because one of the skills that we see in that is Blazing Hand Punch. And Joppa talked about this ability during the dev stream, and I'm going to play a clip here so you can hear sort of how he described it.
Okay, so this is Blazing Hand Punch. It's one of my favorite abilities. Blazing Hand Punch is a charged ability. And as such, I can tap it like I just did there in the video, and it's just a straight punch. But I can also hold it down and charge it up to release it. And then when I do so, I do increase the amount of chi that it costs, but it goes from 150% damage all the way up to 400% weapon damage. And then you see it has a knockdown effect on it as well when I fully charge it. And so I have the option as a monk, if I want to knock a target down, I can build that Blazing Hand Punch up and knock it down, and that may be something that someone else in my group can capitalize on. Or if I'm looking to just flash it out there and get a single quick hit, then I can just tap it.
So that's Joppa describing the Blazing Hand Punch. And in the video, the demonstration, we saw it demoed. Now in the Discord, there was a couple questions about this, and Joppa actually replied, because this is one of those very different types of skills. It's not your typical like, tab target, limited action set, click, it's done, the skill happens. This is a different thing. You hold it down, as Joppa said. So in the unofficial Discord, community member Dag asked, also, charged backstabs. Was this just an example of something you might be considering? Not expecting a response, did tag Joppa. And Joppa said, I'd like to see that mechanic incorporated into all classes, to be honest. It's just too fun, right? So very cool. Like, sort of saying, yeah.
This is what I was looking forward to, like hearing about them using these abilities elsewhere, or the mechanics behind them.
Like it's like a good idea when they take it and run with it, right? And then actually somebody else followed up. Mr. Domino in the community Discord said these new mechanics will open new doors, augment previous work on classes. I'm jealous about what the monk has, and hoping there's some DPS potential if you can create the right loadout for tanks. Looking forward to like group tactics based on this, and if somebody has like an ability that creates like a knockdown or something like that, or maybe just layering up different types of DPS. And Joppa responded again. He said, good examples of exactly what I'm hoping to see. So that's cool. Like I'm very much, we've played a lot of MMOs in our life, right? Like,
a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. We've sort of seen it all, but this is kind of different. Like, what do you think about this, Desert? Do you think that this is like a mechanic that has a lot of potential? Do you not like this, or is this? How do you feel about this?
I specifically like this mechanic, and a few others that they showcased in the monk preview, just because it's not straightforward as we were expecting. I think in the beginning of the project, these kind of mechanics, it doesn't sound too crazy probably from the outside, but To me, it was just a little like unexpected, but a really good unexpected surprise. And that particular mechanic, for some reason, I keep picturing this ability in my head. It's from Black Desert Online, the wizard. So maybe Drac actually remembers this one. I even remember the key combo. Yeah. It's S and left and right click when you don't have the cooldown up, and it's this massive fireball meteor thing from the sky. And it's one of my favorite abilities in that game because it's got this charge up, and the way everything kind of comes together, it's one of the most like impactful skills. And I could see this being applied to, like they mentioned, backstabs. It's applied really well here. I could see it applied in like a giant, wizard attack, and also adding different effects at different points in the charging is really, really neat and adds a layer on top of, a channeled ability, which is pretty normal. So they're not only taking modern approaches, but they're even shaping those, which is just so exciting.
Yeah, those are great points too. So I definitely know Drac remembers that ability because when we played Black Desert for our Classes 101 videos, he specifically mentioned how awesome that ability was, and he did utilize it quite a bit. Now, before people start freaking out and thinking, oh, Pantheon is becoming an action, MMO, it's Black Desert Online, right? Of course, there's always, that sort of wariness about something like that. This is not going to be, every ability is going to have this. It's going to be very, it's going to be special. It's going to be unique. Yes. It's going to be, one of those, just to add flavor to a different way of playing the game and not stripping away the core, but just adding another element to it. So, you mentioned it's a great bring up with Black Desert Online, and I can't believe you actually remember the key combo for that. You must have played way more than I ever did because I can't remember those key combinations at all. But
muscle memory.
Muscle memory is a thing, I guess. So great points. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of these with other skills, like somebody mentioned charge backstab. What if there's a ranger shot that's sort of like a hold down kind of ability?
Yeah. So I want to bring a little tiny thing up on this, actually, now that we're kind of talking about it. And that's, essentially all these games are just pressing buttons. And these developers have to figure out a way to make a player connect with their character in a game, even though the interface that we have is always pressing buttons. And the truth is, you've got a pretty limited amount of tools when it comes to that interface. And this is just them capitalizing on something that can kind of trick your brain into having a different feel. And it's that kind of impact that, you could imagine holding down a key corresponds in your brain slightly to drawing a bow, anything like that, to kind of get you a little bit more into it instead of just taps. It seems really small, but I want to throw that out there and have people consider, if you're freaking out about action RPG, consider that they're really taking into account how to move forward with an old style of game. And one of the ways they can move forward without making it action combat is just to improve that interfacing. And so I really do believe they're on the right track for that. And I hope you would have comfort in that approach.
Yeah, well said. Innovation, I think, is a key, one of the words we always come back to on this show, and it's something that, it's something we see with this game. So good stuff. Looking forward to seeing more of those class videos, those class skill videos, little 2-minute things. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the Twitter questions, and we got a couple good ones this week, as we always do. The first one was the community debate. And you knew I was going to do this one, right? This is, do you read quest text or click through it as fast as possible to power through it? Oh my gosh. I think I just about fell over when I saw this question. We had a little funny thing going on Twitter, actually, where we kept responding in memes from The Princess Bride. I think you saw that. It was pretty good. So the first one is made me laugh too. And this is from Nathaniel James on Twitter. He said, just scrolled through this tweet, skip the text. Anyone in chat know what we're supposed to do here? playing the metagame there, doing the metagame. I love that kind of stuff.
It's so appropriate, though. It really is. Like, he explains exactly the problem without saying what the problem is. It's genius, Nathan. It's amazing.
Very clever. Yeah, super clever. The next is from our buddy Ziplocks. They said, I do my best to read through the quests and get immersed in the setting, but generally they are poorly written and they offer no insight into the world. Beyond the stale fetch quest, this someone needs a delivery, that kind of thing. I'm hoping Pantheon gives us more. And I agree 100%. Fetch quests don't teach me about the world. They're not interesting. No wonder people are skipping through them.
Yep.
And yeah, there's quite a few replies here that are sort of along the same lines. I've tried to pick a few that are a little different. Crowsinger says, I've gotten out of the habit after years of games that just don't care about lore and story and making me care about the world. I would love to care again. But there's no immersion to be found reading about how Jed Delber needs 10 hooves from hoofless centaurs. I know, I'm so sick of collecting random body parts from animals for random reasons. It's bugging me.
Especially when they don't have the piece of their body that every single one of them should have. Anyway, I digress.
Exactly. Like bear feathers or something. Like, yeah, no, don't send me for bear feathers, please. The next one was from Exodactyl, and they said, I'd like to say I read through the quest text, but honestly, when partied up with friends and other players, I click through because I don't want to slow the group down. If others want to read the quest text, I don't want to slow them down. Do I have quest text anxiety? And that's a thing, right? We've heard that before. People have said that before, and it is definitely a thing. I think we've all experienced it where we're just like, we want to read it, but we can't sort of, can't bring ourselves to tell the group, like, can you just wait for me to read this, please? So
yeah, it's funny, that social hang up, right? Especially when you're playing with people that actually do want to read, but all of you don't want to have the others wait. It's hilarious.
Yeah, well, it's the irony of MMOs are supposed to be social games, but we have this one aspect of them that has become like an antithesis to that, right? So it takes you away out of it. Yeah. The next one is from Mr. Donation. This one's pretty funny. It said, my quick clicking through quests came back to bite me in Divinity 2. I was stuck and I had to spend even more time trying to find notes I've missed in my slaying of pretty much everything and moving on. Oops. That happens to me all the time in like, single player RPGs, where I'm like, just not being patient, and then I click through it too quickly and I have to go back and talk to the same person again. I'm like, what did you say?
It's funny you mentioned single player RPGs and Divinity 2 here, because it's the truest sense of role-playing game. It's close to D&D, right? And could you imagine like not listening through D&D, not taking notes or anything like that? Like, it's funny what has become normal in MMORPGs, but is still absent from single player games, because a single player game, you are meant to be invested, and an MMO is now, for some reason, well, if you're not invested, we'll just get you through it anyway. And that's, I think, kind of what's always happening now.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's that, I mean, the whole concept of playing D&D and skipping through quest text, like, that's so bizarre, and it's so like not even like just so outside the realm of the type of game that you're playing, and it's funny how we've gotten away from that. The next one's from Scribbles, who's DTN Scribbles from the Defend the Night on Twitter. He said, I read everything, but let me do it at my own time, not when I want to make heads roll off bodies. He says, give me a good quest journal or fallen pages, not tons of badly scripted NPCs. Huzzah. Yeah, what if they just, you clicked on an NPC, they gave you their text, but it went straight into your quest journal. You didn't necessarily have to read it at that moment. And some games obviously do this, but I don't think it's done enough in MMOs. I think that there is too much like reading it in the moment. It would address what that other person was saying about social anxiety and not wanting to keep the group waiting, right?
Yeah. On the other hand, it also it solves the problem really well, because it does make you able to kind of, skip through, but it also gives you all of the text. And the other side of that is some games, I'm thinking Lord of the Rings Online, I might be wrong here, but some games not only show the full text while you have the quest, but even afterwards, you can go back and read through an entire quest line if you'd like. It's like I don't see why that can't be normal.
Yeah. I don't like it when games, you hear the NPC give their text, their speech, and then you look in your journal and it's like one line. It's like, go here. And you're like, okay, well, that doesn't help me. Like, can you not put the whole thing in there? Can you not tell me the story? Anyway, yeah. Thomas Bell on Twitter said, biggest reason why I skip reading is because the game doesn't give me a reason to. Usually story is not interesting or predictable. Games that don't hold my hand, I'm forced to read the quests, and I like that. So he's just, saying, don't be so linear, don't be so controlled. Make me have to read it if I want to actually do the quest.
Yeah.
That's a good point. The next one's from Isles of Etherion, and this is a great point. They said, the real question is, why can we procedurally generate an entire galaxy in a game, but questing hasn't had any innovation in over 20 years? Oof. I kind of think that's a super good point. Like we're still questing in the same way we were in 2002.
Yeah.
Like there hasn't been a lot of innovation in this area. So the last one is from Evil Vixen, and they said, it depends on how immersive it is and if it makes sense. When it's in a little bland box to the left in a wall, I don't read it. But if it's in the middle of the screen, at the bottom being set in chunks with the character's bust model to the left or right, I'm all for it. So they're kind of getting to the UI aspect of it. Like, how do you present it? Where is it on the screen? Remember EverQuest, right? EverQuest had no pop-up box. It was all in your text box, right? It was all in the chat, and the same thing where the chat went, the combat text went. Then that's kind of an interesting thing. Like, we don't really do that anymore, right? Now it's this weird sort of, games have their own way of doing it, but they're really something to be said for the UI and how it's presented. So a lot of good points there. Yeah. So I'll give you a quick spiel on it. Like my thing on this, obviously I have some strong opinions here, and I might surprise you when I say that I understand why people skip quest text. I do. I love a good, well-written quest. I love a good story. That's who I am. But I've said this before. It's questing in text and lore is kind of like crafting, and it's not for everyone, right? And in games and MMOs, you don't have to craft. You can skip it. You can skip crafting if you want to. That's why MMOs are about everybody having a role, having an identity, right? So if crafting is your thing, you're a crafter. If you're a storyteller, if you're a lore person, or you're a quester, you do quests, right? And they've become this mandatory thing because they're attached to experience. And I think that's the key takeaway. And yeah, we'll talk about it a little more in depth later. We'll get there. I don't want to spoil it, but that's my whole thing is that I think that it's too mandatory. It shouldn't be mandatory.
Yeah. And lastly, I think when you mentioned the whole, it's kind of tied to questing, and it's kind of become, it is part of your identity as a player is I'm a questing player or whatever. Like I like the lore, so I'm going to read it. What's kind of popping in my head here is just how much MMOs have, I don't want to say become, but they are and may have been in the past as well, a system of destinations instead of journeys. And what I mean is when we're talking about Pantheon, making a world, how I idealistically approach it is the game is now about the in-between. Everything that happens after you log in and everything that happens before you log out. And so if we're making questing a destination-only event where you get the reward and it's all about that reward, people will try to get to it as fast as possible because that's what the entire game is about. Now, if there's a way to pivot that to basically making the game about enjoying playing the game, enjoying being in the world, I think that also comes with a difference in how people approach quests. And if I could stay on this longer, I would start talking about the whole perception system and choosing the different options and tags and all those things. But suffice to say, I like the direction VR is going, and I think they have some plans to at least help bring this reading of quest text to be more relevant and more fun, and part of the experience of playing the game. And so I'm happy to see that direction, and I can't wait to see where they, when they start showing that more in the future. But yeah.
Yeah, me too. I agree with you. I think that's really well said too. The perception system is obviously the tie-in here, and a system of destinations. That's a great phrase. That's a great term, a way of putting it. It really has become sort of where we're at, and I think that we need to get back to, like you
just
said,
have fun playing a game.
And do what you want to do. If you don't like questing and reading quest text,
that's fine.
You shouldn't have to do it. You shouldn't be part. It shouldn't be part of the experience that you're not into.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next Twitter question. And this was a seemingly easy question. It said, what matters most, gameplay or graphics, and why? Now, before I get to the responses here, I mean, this is like shooting fish in a barrel, right? I'm sure, Desrin, you know what the responses were. 99% of people, gameplay trumps graphics every time.
Yeah.
Gameplay is the core, right? So I agree. I mean, that's the obvious answer. What I wanted to do was sort of find some people who went against the grain. I wanted to find people who thought otherwise, because I think that's interesting, and I always want to hear different opinions. So I've chosen some responses here, just strictly people who felt no, graphics were better, and why. And so let's read some of those. The first one's from Marco Human, and they said, both really. A game can't be fun without good gameplay, but an ugly game is not going to attract a lot of people either, leading to less income, which in turn leads to less robust gameplay. Can't have one without the other. And then Kilson replied to that, challenging him, saying, hey man, you got to choose only one. And so he said, in that case, I'm going to go against my personal feelings, and I'm going to go with my feelings and say graphics are greater than gameplay, simply because playing with other people is more important than great gameplay, and most people don't touch a game without great graphics. So kudos to you, Marco, for sticking to your guns there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting take.
Yeah.
And hard to say he's wrong necessarily, and with regard to bringing people in, and I think you're going to hear a little bit more of that through some of these other responses. The next one was from Havrish. They said, yes, seriously though, as much as gameplay is better than graphics, they do still matter. They don't need to be cutting edge, but they need to not be crap. I don't play EQ because EQ looks like EQ. So, yeah. The next one from Andy Thompson said, gameplay is more important for sure, but I'd argue graphics are much higher on the list than pictured. A fun game with crap graphics will still turn away a lot of players. This day and age, ignoring that is a major oversight. So again, sort of hearing the same themes, right? We gotta live in the modern times. We can't live in the past, right? Mm-hmm. So, and again, Scribbles made another appearance here, and I included him because he's, like I said, he's a game dev, he knows what he's talking about. He said, graphics get them in the doorway. Gameplay makes them hang out. So number one, graphics. Number two, gameplay. Facts in a graphical game. He said, you can replace all the characters and background assets with a variety of boxes. So, yeah, interesting to hear it from somebody who's actually in the business of this.
Yeah, actually, specifically with Defend the Night, I think he probably has noticed an increase in engagement when they started showing more graphically pleasing like clips as they do on Twitter. I've seen, and in the indie space, it really does matter a lot. A lot of small time games really do start with a pleasing graphical solution to get attention, so that they can fulfill their dreams of making the game that they want to play. So I just want to highlight the validity of Scribbles there. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, and it's so much harder for indie devs, right? I mean, they're not working with the budgets, they're not working with the creative, the numbers of artists on the team. They're smaller teams, and they're just limited in their resources. So, you're fighting this modern era of graphical, amazing graphics, right? Like, we just saw over the weekend, I think, or this week, the Ashes of Creation did their alpha. I think their alpha test preview anyway. Beautiful, right? Like absolutely beautiful game. But, is there gameplay to support it? We don't know yet. We'll find out. Yeah. Maybe I'll just stop.
Yeah, we can move on.
Yeah. Okay. The next one was from Mike Griffin, and they said optimization when it comes to graphics is number one. Realizing one's intended art direction and atmosphere when it comes to the graphics, irrespective of changing photorealism or stylized fantasy, consistency in presentation, and an elegant user interface design never fatigues the eye. So looking at it as well, taking into account the user interface and taking into account the style, not just graphical fidelity, but the style consistency, which I agree with.
Absolutely.
And then the last one from Be More Gaming, they said, obviously the answer is gameplay, but I think the one thing that's the most important when it comes to polish is animation. Your spells and attacks need to feel satisfying to use. Even the best graphics won't save a game from poor animations, which is kind of relevant with that monk video we saw. Like, and I think the animations in that are awesome. I saw some complaints about it, but I saw a lot more positive people, people saying good things about the animations, the monk animations. So it definitely resonates, and it's definitely noticeable. So
yeah.
What do you think about this? What's your take?
I am so glad that this is the direction you took this question, honestly, because you got so many good and relevant answers, even if they don't exactly fit the question. So whereas last week we were kind of joking about people not following Kilson's directions, in this week I think it was a good thing, because a lot of really fantastic notes kind of came out of it. Yes, this is fish in a barrel, shooting fish in a barrel to this community. Everyone wants gameplay. But real quick, I actually happen to have an example just from earlier today that I thought was kind of relevant. So I was sitting with a friend in Discord for about an hour today. We were trying to hook up to play a game, get connected. It was like his last day off. And we spent the entire hour looking for a game to play. And during that time, he was like, hey, I remember this old game that I liked so much back in the day, and it was just so fun to play. And I think they recreated it. So we went and looked it up, right? And he was starting to get really excited about this. He's like, man, it looks like they have this emulator, or they basically re-engineered the whole thing, and like it's totally going, they're patching it and everything. And then like we both watch a video of the gameplay, right? And we just kind of simultaneously were like, it just does, it looks so dated and all this. And while both of us, we want a fun game to play, we both kind of have the feeling of the graphics like kind of can innately affect our feeling of the world itself, of the game itself. It's like our comfort with the game comes quite a bit from the graphics and the animation and all of these kind of extra layers that kind of surround gameplay and help us kind of get to the gameplay at the center, just get us acclimated and comfortable. And this is a perfect example, I think, of, yes, the community probably wants gameplay above all else. And, I'm with that. But everyone has great points here about why graphics are not to be taken lightly. And it's very relevant, very relevant.
Yeah, exactly. So my thoughts on this, and I was agreeing with a lot of what you were saying there, but here's the thing, and I think why people are so adamant of that gameplay is king is because what graphics have done as we've gotten more modern games, graphics have become this sort of shield for bad gameplay, right? So they draw you in, like you're saying, they draw you in, they get there, that gateway sort of drug to get you into the game. They draw the community to the game, but then you get into it and you're like, wow, this is super shallow. Like, this is a beautiful game that has nothing below the surface. There's nothing under the hood here that I can really sink my teeth into. You mentioned Black Desert Online earlier, and I don't want to brag on it, but that was my personal experience with Black Desert Online, was that I wasn't, beautiful game. I found it very, very unengaging, gameplay wise, but that's just me. I'm not saying it's a bad game. At least not here. So yeah, no, I mean, graphics become this shield to sort of cover for bad gameplay, I think, in some cases. So I think we're all a little gun shy when it comes to that. We want our games to be beautiful, but we're like, please just don't be beauty with nothing underneath, right?
We've gotten so acclimated to that bait and switch, that we're really apprehensive.
Yeah.
I totally get that. And, they say you can't polish a turd. Can I say that?
That's what I was thinking too. You can, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. iTunes doesn't care.
There we go. Well, there you go, guys.
Yeah, I know. And then there's games out there that are so basic graphically. Like, I don't know if you know Dwarf Fortress. I've never played it. But I've read a lot of positive things. People love Dwarf Fortress. And then you look it up and you're like, what is this? This is like some crazy machine language ASCII characters, going on here. Like, this is a game? But you watch people who play it, or you talk to people who play it, and you're like, okay. So you can have great gameplay with very nothing graphics. But again, that's the outlier. It's an extreme. It's sort of an edge case.
Yeah. Great example, though. But yeah.
Right on. So good Twitter discussions there. Let's wrap up VR news and notes. When the Pantheon community speaks, we listen. So let's dig into the forums and fan projects to see what the discussion's all about.
All right. We've got two things from the forums today. To start, I'd like to officially welcome Xanafel to the community. So earlier we mentioned Xanafel, one of our recent pledge giveaways that we do often on the YouTube premiere of this show here. But he wrote a quick introductory post on the forums, which is awesome. And I'd love to just real quick read it. So he says, hello all. Long time lurk. All the rest. My fantasy alias is Xanafel. I am quite the casual MMOer. Cut my teeth on DAOC in the early 2000s, joining my wife and her guild, the Ninth Night, on their Midgard server. I have dabbled in several MMOs since, but haven't really found a home after leaving Warhammer Online. I mostly play tanks and healers. Terminus will have the pleasure of meeting Xanafel as the stoic Darkmere Druid. Awesome. She intends to carve her race's legacy into this broken world and smite any who oppose us. Look forward to having great debates and fun in the Discords and on these forums. So that's awesome. That's great. I'm really happy to have you, Xanafel, and I'm really glad to see you're already active on the Pantheon Plus Discord, getting conversations going. I can't always jump in there, but I've loved watching you guys go back and forth. So it's fantastic.
And I just want to throw in there before you move on quick, because having played Dark Age of Camelot recently, I would just want to say to Xanafel, if you're listening, don't go back and watch our Classes 101 video. There's a former co-host of this show that at one point in the video says mid sucks. So I know people are very attached to their realms in that game. You will not be pleased if you watch that, because there is some disrespect to Midgard, but I'll leave it at that. Okay, so yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention too here before we move on is that I reached out to, or actually another member of Pantheon Plus, Sparrow, reached out to Bronson, a longtime member of the community, and he is a professional artist. He's got a long history of working in the industry doing artwork, and he volunteered some artwork for our background video, which you've probably seen already at this point. So I want to thank Bronson profusely. I reached out and thanked him as well, but again, I'll do it again. He's an amazing artist, super good dude, and if you ever want to contribute more artwork to the show, you're more than welcome to do so. So thanks, dude.
Yeah, please do. I'm actually begging you. All right. Well, next I thought I'd pull a really fun discussion from the official forums, started by user Wellspring. And they ask, how do you like to earn the bulk of your leveling experience, as a quest reward or from killing mobs? And so here we are, Theric. What's it going to be?
What's it going to be for me? Well, I mean, I think we alluded to it earlier. I will get my experience from both. That's mine, but I want to hear what other people had to say. I'm curious before I share more of that. I want to hear what other people had to say.
So one user here, we've got, I think it's Philo. Really straightforward. I'm looking forward to grinding XP by camping mobs. It's been a while. It's true. The camp is an old thing, and I would love to see it return.
Yeah. Philo's a regular on the forums and always has very strong opinions on things and very much traditionalist. So that doesn't surprise me to hear that. And I think that he's one of many people that just really like that idea of sitting in a spot, grinding, camping mobs, and just the old way of doing things, and which is not a bad thing either.
Absolutely. We've also got Edemus here. This is definitely killing mobs. I prefer to have quests be more meaningful than just simple experience. Again, bringing it back. And then
make it more.
Make it more than just a quest grind. I'm gonna stand out and say yes, absolutely with that. But and then I gotta always bring in here Vandrad. Perfect, short, easy answer. Oh, definitely by killing mobs.
So Vandrad would kill anything that gives him experience. I can tell you that much. I think he if we had family in game, I don't even think they're safe. I think he would be, any kind of pets, he might go after them if they gave him a couple XP, he's brutal. He'll take anything for XP.
I definitely sense a tiny bit of aggression in that line, but I'm with.
Well, we did the. No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm totally with him on that. I'm actually in the camp of mobs being primary experience, but go ahead. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I was just going to say, when we did our Pantheon Plus draft a couple of years ago, I was on Team Vandrad, and I'm going to tell you, man, we were the angriest team on the block. Nothing was safe from our bows and blades for anything. If you gave XP, man, you better run. We were a bunch of angry dudes. So
perfect. Yeah. Well, speaking of anything that earns XP, so there's mobs, camping, dungeon diving, all that stuff, and I'm totally for that being the main way of getting XP. But I'm really a huge fan of having as many ways to earn XP as possible, even if that's the main way. As silly as it sounds, even a kind of trivial amount of XP given for other tasks, it always has just kind of felt really good to me. And of course, I think the amount of XP earned from quests should be really minimal. That's totally a thing for me. But I do think maybe certain quests should have large rewards. Just a few really specific ones. We were talking about epic quests before. I feel like an epic quest should give at least a moderate amount of XP. But I just don't think questing should be the efficient way to earn XP. You just have to do every quest you get your hands on, go to the quest hub. It just means the game has this demand for, it always needs more and more quests, and doing more and more quests means more and more bad writing. And
that's exactly right. Exactly.
And just needless quest grind, which just doesn't feel good. And I know some people might say that, grinding mobs is also kind of dull, but I think the social impact you can have while doing a camp is just different than slamming out 20 quests in an hour. So, but yeah.
So I'm going to push back on you a little bit on this one because here, so you said, make it inefficient, make it the less efficient way to gain XP by questing. It shouldn't be the most efficient way. But the thing is that people never want to miss out on a chance for XP, right? No matter how small the reward is, if there's a chance for XP, people they want to avail themselves of it and so that's when you get this situation where people are doing things just for the XP and not for the enjoyment of the actual quest. And like you said, it leads to this exponential growth of badly written quests just so they can have things in the game so people can get XP that way. One of the things we talked earlier about, these kill quests, kill 10 bears, kill 10 wolves. Why are these not things on a bulletin board in the city center, just a task board, not even task board, but a bounty board, a hunting board? That should be what we're talking about. If you want to talk XP, if you want to do that kind of stuff, those aren't quests. They're just bounties. They're just hunter whatever's. And you get your XP that way. But if you want to do like a story, I really think there should be no XP attached to that. And I think that, but I do want them to have utility in the world. Now, here's the crux of this where it gets tricky, is because I do want people who are into the lore and doing quests to be useful. I want there to be social rewards. I want there to be a reason to have somebody like that in your group. If I want to be a keeper in Pantheon, I want to have a reason for me to be in somebody's group, because I've done the stuff that's like a crafter, like I said earlier. I've done something on my time that I enjoy doing that now has some sort of social value. So you don't have to reward me with a character progression from an experience standpoint, but you do need to reward me with something I can take out into the world and make be relevant, right? Yeah. So I'm not a big fan of XP through quests. I'll get my experience through killing mobs, through grinding, I like the discovery. You mentioned discovery as an area too. And a lot of games do this. When you discover a new area, you get, 50 XP, whatever. I have no problem with that. That's kind of cool. I would be doing it anyway. If you want to give me a little experience for it, it's not like I'm doing it because I feel like I have to. Although maybe some people feel that way. You never know. That's just me. Some people don't want to ever explore. Maybe they just want to do one area. Who knows? So you could make the same argument. And then lots of little things. I know, like, you can also get like experience for, like, I don't know, discovering a new recipe, or maybe like if you've got like a mob journal, like a bestiary that you're trying to fill out, and you complete the entry for wolves, that gives you experience. I don't really have a problem with stuff like that. It's kind of trivial. But yeah, no, my XP is going to come from hunting and killing stuff, I think.
Yeah, I don't mind the, you even said bounties. That's the word for it in Lord of the Rings Online, right? They have that kind of system. I don't mind that at all. I actually rather liked the way they did it in Lord of the Rings Online, where you collected the items foremost. So you didn't actually have to clog your quest journal with tasks, you just, hey, I killed a bunch of wolves. I got this stack of things. Let me go turn this in, at the whatever. I don't mind that so much. That's no big deal to me at all. But I do like, even if it's trivial amounts of XP, like you said, like exploration and that kind of a thing. I think of like the collectibles in EQ2, shinies, it's not like it is going to get you your levels, but a little tiny reward for doing other things. It just feels good. And sometimes, I'm sure some people in our audience have done this. In games that do exploration XP, have you ever tried leveling a character by running around the world and just trying to survive? It's a weird little self-challenge that I think I do in every game that tries this.
Really?
I just see how far I can get. I'm not expecting to actually hit max level, but in EQ2 I did this, and I can't remember the year, but I got a character to level 18, I think, just running around. It was not efficient, though. It was just a silly thing. But if they didn't give any reward for discovering new places, I wouldn't be able to do that. And it's not like it boosted me like crazy or anything. It's just, it can open little opportunities like that. Same with collectibles. I would like to see a little bit of XP maybe for discovering new faction. Anything that gets players kind of out and just playing the game in its fullness. I actually would love tiny bits of XP attached to that stuff. But yeah, I do think main source should be killing mobs.
Yeah, that's so cool. I've never heard of anybody doing that. That is pretty sweet. You know what it reminded me of? There was a news story not too long ago about somebody in Lord of the Rings Online. They got to max level just by baking pies. That was the only thing they ever did in the game, was bake pies. And apparently they got to max level just by doing that, which is kind of crazy, but also kind of cool and kind of interesting. And that's the thing, right? If you attach experience to doing something, does it take away the own reward of it? You would have done that anyway. You would have run around and seen, as much of the world as you could, just to see how far you could get. Would people craft in Lord of the Rings Online if there was no experience attached to it? I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean,
but it was nice, this nice little bonus for them too, to get, to get that reward out of it, I guess.
Yeah, very much so. And even in games that do like mini dings, I just like was remembering, times where I would be like about to die and then I'd like take a step into, a little bit further into a zone and get a tiny bit of XP, just enough to get that mini ding and get my health bar reset. That would be in like EQ2, but it's just adding tiny rewards on these things that are like actually trivial. I feel is just such a easy but effective way of trying to add a little bit of emergent gameplay, a little bit of extra spice is all. So that's why I'm really wanting to get into that. And I think making questing be such a big, XP driver can take away from those other things. So again, I would love to see it if they tone down the quest XP a bit. But
right. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good argument. I can get behind that.
Awesome.
Mail on a Sunday? That's right. Let's check the mailbox. Okay, so now we are in the mailbox, and so Des, let's alternate questions again. I'll try to remember this week because I totally forgot last week and started asking the questions. I just kept asking them instead
That's okay.
Throwing it to you. I will try to remember this week, I promise. First one is from our new community member Xanafel, and they actually had a lot of questions in Discord, and I messaged them. I'm like, which one do you want me to ask? Let's do one instead of like 4. So they chose this one. They said, with the addition of dispositions, traits, and other AI improvements included in June's developer stream, what are your thoughts and opinions on how it will not only change group dynamics but also solo play, including the viability of soloing? So we touched on this a little last week, and I'll just hit the last part about the soloing because it brought to my mind how this might affect it. I think it makes soloing a more of a selective activity, and there are probably going to be some dispositions that I think are probably bigger targets for soloers. You know what I mean? Like if you see a pyrophobic mob, what if you are a soloer and you're out trying to do that, and you can keep them theoretically sort of on the run, right? By just holding a torch or having some sort of fire in your hand. Maybe you could trap them in a corner and sort of chip away at them, as soloers tend to do. But on the other side of the coin, there's also the alarmist disposition, which is probably going to be the bane of souls
yes.
everywhere, yes. Right? Because that's all they do is they bring in other mobs to them. That's the alarmist disposition, what they do. So I think that I'll tackle it from that aspect. I think there's going to be real target selection with regard to dispositions and traits among solo players. What do you think about this?
Dude, 100% agree. And I like focusing on the soloing side of this as well, just because I think we can already see how group dynamics are going to be really just off the chain, just crazy. At the high end, they've already said that a lot of things won't be that intense as the demo that they gave us. But what this really opens up, that I'm probably going to broken record and start driving home like crazy, is just, we got to get out of the mindset of the old MMORPG predictable, Netflix while your hand's on the keyboard kind of gameplay. And this is a really good example of, yes, Pantheon is going to have quote unquote solo content, but how is that even determined in this game? And the exciting thing about me is people are actually going to have to learn the mobs that they're fighting, like not just like learn, they do a stun every once in a while and then occasionally they do a lightning bolt, but like people are going to seek out creature types and traits or however you want to put it that suit their class and suit their game style, so that they're going to maximize their efficiency just by knowledge. And that's like a whole different, like, I have not really seen that in an MMO other than just a tiny little like variance of, oh, well, I'm going to go fight these level 48 goblins because I'm level 50, and that's a really efficient way for me to farm. And maybe they're easier to farm because like they don't hit as hard to cloth wears or something. And that's about as far as it goes. But now we're going to get into things where, hey, my like spell slots happen to be set up in a way that counters everything that they do, as well as does enough damage to get them down efficiently and protect myself. And I'm perfectly suited for this type of mob, and I'm probably going to be able to take these guys down levels before other classes or other setups, and that is so exciting.
It's very cool. You know, it's very much like it's almost like a build, right? Like it's like a disposition build. Like I'm built to take out the mana crazed disposition, right? Like that's super exciting, and that's very. It's being done in a very different kind of way. You know, the concept is being taken in a different way. So great point there. Yeah, good one.
Yeah, fun question. Thanks, NFL. And also we've got Maya says her question is simple. That's whenever you start out that way, I always have to give her a hard time. Whenever you start out that way, I'm expecting this answer to not be simple. So let's see what we've got. How much modification will there be to the character creation models? Now, of course, we all know that this isn't a right now question, but she wants some discussion on it. So she wants some ideas, some talk about what we'd be able to modify with slider bars or hair colors, etc., etc. Okay, this is fairly simple. Do you want to start with this one? Because I feel like I'm going to have a shocker here.
No, really? Oh, I'm interested now. Okay, yeah, let me say, I think you and I have something very similar about ourselves that can answer this question, and I'm glad that we're on the same page about this, or we're similar in this way, because I think we need to see more long hairstyles for guys, for male characters, male models in the game.
Absolutely.
Because we're both guys with long hair relatively, right? So I am so like, every time I create a character, like I've got like two choices, right? Like, why are you giving me only two long hair choices? Like, you know, hey man, throw it in. Like let's mix it up a little bit. Like, can we make it a little more customizable? I don't really care about all that like sliders for like facial contour and stuff. Like I don't do any of that stuff. I'm not an artist, so I just sort of leave that like. But give me some long hairstyles for the male characters. Like, you know, what if you could use the female, you know, hairstyles and the male styles interchangeably on each? Like, why can't we just do that? That seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
So, simple
hey,
answer.
Some games are actually doing that now, and I can't say how much I appreciate it.
Yeah, there are a couple games that have done that lately. I've played a few lately.
Let's just be real. Female hairstyles are just way cooler than the guy.
They're just more interesting.
But on my take on this, I admittedly, as RP centric as I am, I honestly could care very little about this. They could actually give me like 4 face choices, you know, and I'm gonna be happy.
Really?
I tend to get a little bit overwhelmed with the crazy amount of sliders approach. So when I see this question, it's kind of like, well, I know a lot of people really like it, so I want there to be a lot of customization. But for me, it's not really a huge deal. And just to toss it out there as an example, I think, I believe it was ESO had a really great solution to this, where they had that triangle where you can just kind of like generalize, like, here's kind of what I want. I want to be like more muscular, more, you know, gaunt, or, you know, easy stuff like that, just to kind of let the people that really care get super deep into it with sliders, but maybe have kind of a basic version for people that just kind of like want to leave it a little bit more broad in their changing of stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, ESO has an interesting system. It's funny because it's like sort of a little different from the single player Elder Scrolls games, right, where it's very much more very customizable, but ESO takes it a little more less granular with that. Good. Okay, last question comes from Gulo, and they said, what are some fun and interesting ways games have made your race class choices feel meaningful to you? And you've got a good answer here, I think, so I'm going to let you run with this one. I like your answer here.
Oh man. Okay, so I've got 2 examples here. And like I said, I already warned you guys about Vanguard. All right, so I'm I'm just gonna take a little step in here. And in Vanguard, each race had its own starting location, and more often than not, each class within that group or within that race had its own starting trajectory, starting quest line, whatever you want to call it. So I can't remember the numbers, but in the end, it came up to be, you would have to make so many characters to actually even experience that whole thing. So when you actually did those quest lines, it actually felt kind of unique. Like whenever you get out of that and you kind of join the rest of the world in, the same quest everyone else is doing, that's over. But I just really like that you had this unique trajectory in the beginning. It kind of sets your journey on the right path.
Yeah, and Vanguard had some of the best races and classes in an MMO ever. Like, they didn't overdo it with numbers, but the ones they did have, like they had a lot, but it wasn't crazy. But the ones they were all great. Like they were all really interesting and I still hear people talk about it all the time. I loved my Disciple, right? I loved my, I can't remember them all, but there were some really good ones in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And starting on different continents, which is, supposed to be like a really big deal. There's a lot of really great things. And, but on the topic of like races being like just really good, I'm not sure how many people in our community would think of this or have their eye on this game, but if anyone's familiar with Mortal Online 2, it's a game based on Mortal Online 1 that's currently in development, and they're introducing a lot of the mechanics and a lot of the lore, a lot of the races and stuff from that game. But in my time playing Mortal Online 2, I've already noticed the races in that game really matter. The Vila are these like agile, like really, like the kind of, you can imagine them kind of like wood elves, I guess. But when you see a Vila, you're like, they're agile, and that's like more than just like a stat. Like they're legitimately like faster, because that's part of their race. The Terzar are like big, bulky, strong guys. So like, if they run up to you, like they're gonna womp you. We've got like the what is it? The Shivra. They're like these sly, intelligent. They typically are more like mage kind of things. Then there's they actually have these unique traits. They almost turned the races into the classes. About that is you see one of these races, and they have pretty distinct profiles too, which is important. But you kind of understand a little bit about them to begin with, and what's even better about that is when you do like an off-meta kind of a thing, it's even more special because everyone's going to, see a Vila and be like, oh yeah, they're probably going to whip out a bow and, shoot me. And then you whip out a staff instead and start casting spells. It's like, whoa, I was not expecting that. But anyway, it's just on the whole deal with like classes or races mattering and being really unique. I got to shout that game out because they're actually doing a great job with that.
Nice. I got to give that a try now. You've intrigued me. I want to give that a shot. I've seen stuff recently on it. Maybe I should get into it. We'll see. Sit back and relax. It's time for the lore you know. Okay, so with the recent monk showcase, I thought it would be appropriate to read some lore that gives context to the monk class on Terminus. So we begin with the story of Beliris, who's a signature character that Visionary Realms released some time ago. So it's a little longer read, but just stick with me here and follow along as I read the words of the brilliant Jan Gerhardt as we learn about Beliris and the Archive's deep connection to the monk class. To speak of a mystery is to grasp for the wind. Among the Archive of Suroa, there are few greater winds than Beliris, the so-called Mother Mage. Unlike the dignitaries of other nations, Beliris exists almost as a ghost, haunting the thoughts of those who have beheld her and making skeptics of those who have not. Even among the Archive, she's an enigma, a tree that towers above the forest of her people, yet whose base cannot be found once you enter. But to learn anything about Beliris, we must peer back in time before any of her people came to this world. Indeed, we need consider what makes them a people at all. The greater the strength of two opposing forces, the more vital is the balance. The body of an archai is one such paradox of pressures. Delicately tuned, their outer husk is a mixture of mineral and magic, behaving as a skin but often mistaken for a shell. Like the crust of a warm planet, this husk constrains the living soul that dwells within, the two forces united in a painful process known as true birth. Still, the volatile soul cracks through the surface in seams of light, reminding the dead husk of its role as a necessary burden. And if this balance shifts in favor of either side, the result is a majestic fit of gore and light, ending with the smoldering husk of the archai corpse. For thousands of years on the planet Roa, the archai practiced a peculiar tradition known as infant surrender. In that former world, it was customary for some families to give a newborn to a monastic order known as the Atahane, severing any familial bond with the infant for the remainder of his or her life. A group of celibate servant monks, the Atahane, were trained as defenders of the three religious sects of the archai's Eru, Ne, Mar Pantheon, as well as bodyguards for diplomatic envoys and the like. Their simple and often silent role placed them on a low rung on the social ladder, rarely taking even a name for their own. And while a tradition like infant surrender may seem extreme to you or I, it is a useful window into the interdependencies of archaic culture. The monks would house and raise the child, rigidly imparting the mysteries of Roa and them from a very young age. Along with their internal regimen, acolyte bodies would become refined instruments of combat, each a living weapon yielded by a pure mind. Eventually, these young Atahane would join their brethren in service to the Eru, Ne, Mar Pantheon and their people as a whole. And that's the lore you know. Whew. Well, that was a long read, Des.
That was great, though.
I usually try to cut it a little shorter than that because I don't think either my voice is gonna give out or I'm gonna stumble over my words a few times. But I actually managed to get through that. So I hope you enjoy that. I hope everybody learned a little bit about the monks and the archai race. So
well, as an archai main, this is particularly wonderful for me. And you taught me something today, and that is it's Bel Iris.
Bel Iris. Funny you should say that because I was reading this before we started recording and I was trying to remember how JN said it because I've heard him say it and I was thinking, was it Bel Iris or Bel Iris? But it's Bel Iris. I'm 99% sure it's Bel Iris.
There was some drama about that, but that's another point. Great story, though. Okay. Great background. I love being an archai. I can't wait to dig into that more.
I love that you're an archai. I think the archai are one of the coolest races in Pantheon. I really like them. It's very close to a top choice for me. So if I wasn't an elf, if I wasn't committed to the elven lifestyle, I would definitely be of the archai.
Well, you almost have good taste.
Good stuff. Yeah, almost. Story of my life. Anyway, great show, Des. Thank you so much again for joining me here today. I really enjoy our conversations, and thank you to everybody who listened. And just remember that if you're here for the premiere, every Sunday at noon Eastern on YouTube is the premiere, and then you can also download it via our podcast platforms, whether that's iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. And thank you to everybody for supporting the show. We appreciate it. And Des, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter, and Desrin at DesrinDoes also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.